Hey everyone, this is Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the Amazon FBA and e-commerce podcast. All right, in this episode, we're going to be talking about building a strong team culture in a high growth business. We're going to be talking about the first steps you should take to establishing your company culture, how to ensure your culture does not become diluted over time, and the importance of your team to contribute to learn on the job. Okay, this is the Lunch with Norm podcast, the Amazon FBA and e-commerce podcast.
Lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm, lunch with Norm.
Okay, like I said, today we're going to be talking about building a strong team culture in a high growth business. Our guest today is co-founder and co-CEO of Form Brands, leading its mergers and acquisitions team. He first developed a passion for consumer brands when he was selling Dead Sea-based cosmetics in malls in Miami at the age of 21. Now, I've got to dig into that because I think I know that company. They were all over Canada and the US, and I want to know if he was part of that. Anyways, he later began his career in investment banking at Credit Suisse in London and then joined TA Associates. He is on a mission to identify and build the next generation of world-class consumer brands through technology and strategic deal-making. We're going to be welcoming Ruben Amar in just a brief second, but first, a word from our sponsor. The Legion is your go-to community where you can learn, grow, and build your Amazon and e-commerce business. As you know, being an entrepreneur can be lonely. Now you can share struggles, build a network, and celebrate your successes. And guess what? Our community is free. All you have to do is head over to our Facebook group to join. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel at Private Label Legion so you can stay up to date with tips, strategies, and advice from other experts in the industry. Okay, remember one thing. To get all this great information, follow us, subscribe, and ring that bell so you can get automatic notifications. Squire.
Hello. I didn't even tell you this, but I am going to medieval times on Friday, so I will be.
Well, you should fit right in there.
Yeah. For those listening, I don't know how it happened, but my nickname from Norm and our family friends were Squire, so was Squire. But anyways, welcome everyone to today's show. We've got Rad joining us in the comments. We've got Redbeard from Edmonton, Claudia from Alberta and Calgary, and Cool Hand 99. Let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to know. Also, if you have any questions throughout today's episode, feel free to put them over in the comment sections. We'd love to get to them. This is a completely live podcast, so if you have a question, a comment, a thought, let us know in the comment sections. Also, we do have a giveaway today, as we do every single podcast, so stay tuned to learn more about that. Also, smash those like buttons, give us a thumbs up. If you're watching from YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now and ring that bell so you get all the notifications. And I think that's about it from me. Don't forget to join the Lunch with Norm Facebook group. It's Lunch with Norm, Amazon, FBA, and e-commerce collective. And that's where all the fun happens.
Okay, and just a quick note, today we do have a hard cutoff time. So if you do have questions, throw them over in the comment section and we will get to them. This is a great subject. I like talking about corporate culture. It's so important. And it's so important to just having, especially if you have a fast-growing company. So we're going to get to that in 2 seconds. But if you do have any comments or questions, throw them into the comment section. And now we can sit back, relax, enjoy the episode, grab that cup of coffee, and welcome Ruben.
Hey, Norm.
How's it going, sir?
I'm all right. How are you doing? Thanks for having me today.
Hey, no problem. Whereabouts are you located?
So I'm located in New York, in Manhattan. We have our office on 19th Street and 5th Avenue. Pretty nice open space where everyone comes in, those that are not working remote. And yeah, we've been here since October. So it's been a pretty nice journey here. The day is finally sunny. So that's why you'll see me smiling more. So it's pretty good timing that we have this lunch while the weather is amazing outside. Doesn't happen often in New York.
I wish that would be the same up here in Toronto. It is absolutely freezing. I was out having a cigar last night, and I had to put on a big jacket and a hood. Anyways, this is supposed to be spring going on summer. I don't know what's happened this year.
Yeah, Canada is always late summers coming in. So
all right, so we're touching on a really interesting topic. I love growing companies. I love fast growing companies. I like hyper growth growing companies. And I've read a bunch of books over the years. One that I used to love was Crossing the Chasm. I don't know if you've ever read that, but that was such a good book. And then E-Myth was another book that helped me systemize everything that I do, from making a cup of coffee right on up. But all of this points to building a corporate culture. And Raving Fans, very short, quick read. That was another good one that I read. This is a perfect topic. Our brands are growing. Amazon's telling us that they want brands. They're building a brand community. People are getting incredible sales right now on and off Amazon. This is perfect timing. And what I'm going to say to the audience too, if you do know of anybody who is experiencing either a fast growth, hyper growth company, or if they just have a brand that they're trying to grow, this is the perfect podcast for them. So anyways, let's get to it. I'm thinking that the first place we should start is, why bother with building a corporate culture?
Yeah, that's actually the first question, Brenton, Alex, and I have asked ourselves 2 years ago. What does it really matter? And, as you said, we can read a lot of books about growing companies and how important is the culture when incorporating a company and growing a company. We don't appreciate necessarily from reading those books how early you need to think about the culture you want to build going forward. And, before we even acquired our first brand, which was, around December 2020, we had to outline the most important things for us as founders that we will want to have going forward for the next 10 years, 15 years of us building the company. And it was as simple as outlining a mission statement, building the core principles, and shaping the success tenets that will eventually motivate our employees and, more importantly, inform business decisions on an every single day basis. And so as we think about culture and developing culture, we had to go from, the base of the pyramid to be able to then build the remaining part of the pyramid, which is all about collaborative, celebratory, and elevating people around us.
Now, you have a unique situation because you're buying brands. And I would think that every company that you're looking at already has their own culture, good, bad, or ugly. And that's probably a lot different. I don't know. Maybe it's the same. But as a brand trying to bring on employees. So on a much smaller scale, I guess,
Yeah.
A brand bringing on employees has to get them to buy into the culture. How do you do it with a brand?
Yeah. So this is not something that we doing at Forum, because as you think about the way we execute our strategy, that we acquire businesses, and the big majority of time the sellers do not stay on board because they have other plans. They want to start a new business. They want to start a new brand. They want to retire on a boat. Depending on what the project are, we are completely respectful of what they want to do later. Sometimes we'll keep some of their employees. So there will be a very important onboarding process that we will put together. We have a lot of documentation, a lot of mission statements, and basically documentation that goes back from day number one at Forum that we will put in place to help those employees that were part of a brand that we acquire transfer to our company and basically just be part of our culture and our dream. So we have a full process. I'm happy to get into the more details there. But when it comes on a more micro level, if we are talking about a brand owner that currently has an Amazon business or a D2C business, and this person wants to hire new people, because it's a more of a on a smaller stake. And so on that level, the most important thing for them is to share the dream. Really be super crisp about what is the North Star, what is the mission statement for the brand, what are we trying to solve for in terms of consumer. And I think if you want to have the best employees and really want to have loyal employees who honestly will sweat as much as you would sweat to be able to build a business, you have to be able to communicate this mission statement very well, be able to share this dream, to have people bought in and then build this company with you. And it goes from companies and brands that have one employee up to companies like us that have, tens and tens of employees. It's always viable.
So if I think of building brand or building performance-based culture or a corporate culture, one of the first things that I try to do is I live the brand. And so, like, even with this podcast, it's always the same shirt or close to it, unless it's dirty. It's the logo, it's the orange and the blacks. It's it's very consistent. Anybody who's working with us on our team, they're bought into this, and they know where we're going. The mission statement, as you say, is so important, but the consistency, I think, is important too. So if some companies, they don't have to, like, you don't have to wear a Lunch with Norm shirt, but there are certain steps that you take to make sure that the buy-in process is there and the brand consistency is there for the culture. What steps? So I buy in to your mission statement. Okay, so I get it. I know where you want to go. What would be the next group of steps that you would take?
Yeah, that's an incredibly important question. So I think once people are buying in your mission statement, you want to make sure that people are also in line with your principles. What today we call principles, some companies call them core values. In any way, these are the fundamental, I call it the fundamental DNA of your company. You have a mission, you need to have a DNA to be able to achieve this mission. At Forum, the three of us have spent a lot of time working on those principles. I remember when we started Forum, we had a list of 10, 15. It took us, I think, a month to really go down to only, 6 that really are core to us. And we believe that with people buying in those principles, we will be able to build the company we are thriving to build. And so for us, we started with those 6 principles that really are very important for us. The first one was act like an owner. The second one is have a bias for action. Number 3 is communicate and be transparent. Number 4, the best ideas win. Number 5, champion diversity, equity, and inclusion. And number 6, which is the one I think I like the most, is because I would think it's table stake, but not every time. Treat others the way they want to be treated. And so from these 6 principles, when we first hired our first 10 employees, we wanted them to be incorporated in those principles. And so we did an exercise with them of each of them had to choose one principle and write down a paragraph of what it means to them, what it really means to them. Because everyone will have a different perspective on those principles. And from that point of view, we put together a sort of list of principles with what it means to each of the most senior people in the company. And this page is available for every single person that joins the team. We of course test those principles when we do the recruiting. I can touch base on that as well if you want. But once someone is joining, we are constantly talking about these principles. We're having always meetings to talk about what it means for one, what it means from the other. We challenge those principles. But at the end of the day, this is the DNA that will help you build a company, a successful company going forward. And you want every single new employee that you have, hired, be completely bought in, completely bought in those principles.
Employees bought in, you've done the proper training, they make a mistake. What happens? Are you more micromanaging, or are you letting them do their own thing? And if mistakes happen, they happen.
Oh, for when you say mistakes, you're talking about like day-to-day mistakes or
Yes, like it could be
mistakes that
a day-to-day mistake. So there's lots of going on, like in our company, for example. So an
Mm.
Amazon Managed Services company, there's bound to be mistakes that happen, and yeah, that we have a policy on how to handle that. I was just kind of wondering, what would happen in your organization if mistakes were made.
Yeah, I will go once. So I'm going to answer that with one question. I heard you saying you were intrigued by my experience as, as a cosmetic
Yes,
salesman. Yeah.
yes.
So this is an interesting, I think, past experience that I had personally with regards to mistakes and failure. Let's address this topic of mistakes and failure on a day-to-day within a company. So one thing I've learned from this experience of selling products, I was trying to basically stop people like you on the malls in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and try to convince them to buy my cosmetics products. As you can imagine, a lot of them would never stop. A lot of no's. I got a lot of no's to my face. And so I started basically incorporating a culture of embracing failure as a huge way to be more successful. I.e., from my point of view, and it took me time to get there, from my point of view, the more no's you get, i.e., the more failures you face, the more likely it will be that the yes or the success is going to come in a much bigger and meaningful way. And so when you embrace this culture, it has to be translated in the way we build foreign brands. And one of our most important OKR, we work with OKRs, is test and learn. We encourage people on a day by day to test, 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 and learn. And what it means is that most of the time, these testing experiences will have failures, and that's great. We are very much pushing people to learn from their failures to be better operator, better employee, better cultural fit with our company on a going forward. This is very unique for foreign brands because we, instead of asking people to be careful with mistakes, we are asking them, take the risk. We are in a startup environment. We are in a high growth environment. In order for us to be successful in the long term, we need to think out of the box. If you want to think out of the box, we need to test constantly. If you want to test constantly, we need to accept that failure will be part of the journey. And so this is extremely important culture that we have at Forum. And it's not only like in our mission statement or our principles, it's actually in our OKRs. And so we ask people to test. It has to come with some objectives that we have over the years. So that's very important for us.
One thing that we kind of breezed over was, okay, you've got the new employee. We're going to go back to recruiting in a second, but what about training? The importance of proper training.
Yeah. So training is, of course, important on many different aspects. And I think that, when you think about training, you also need to think about resources that are available to employees when it is related to company culture. So there are two things that are important to understand. You have what I call the hard skill training, which is, if you think about one of our brand managers joining in, we will want to make sure that this person is up and running on the P&L, on the Seller Central, like API for marketing. This is what I call hard skills training. And then you have the cultural training, which is a very different way of thinking about training. So in general, at Forum, we maintain an in-depth library of resources on our Notion platform. So we work with Notion. Maybe people know about it, but it's a very, very helpful collaborative tool that we've been using since day one. The second piece is that at a company town hall, so we organize every month a town hall where we gather all the employees in the company and we talk about our strategic initiatives. Employees actually participate in an exercise where all the employees share what our principles meant to them and documenting them in the resource library. So that made people feel much more connected to the principles. We also always review on those monthly town halls. We always spend a lot of time reviewing principles, culture, company objectives, and our North Star. This is always serves as a good reminder especially when you think about a company that grows very fast, where you have new employees joining in on a monthly basis. You want to make sure to reiterate many, many, many times. There's like a rule of thumb where you need to repeat things 12 times before someone really remembers that. So 12 times, it's every month over a year. Think about it. And then the last thing we've actually done on a cultural basis, which is pretty interesting, we call it the Power of Principles Awards. And this is basically like a monthly award that will spotlight employees who, exemplify our principles. And the way it works is that cross-functional awards that are built to, really to build camaraderie and encourage cross-functional relationship building. And every time that there are two people who get those awards for a month, they have the responsibility to nominate the next two. So throughout the month, they will have to think about our principles. They will have to embrace these principles because they have the responsibility to nominate the next one. And so there are small things that, from a culture embracement perspective, you need to keep doing on a day-by-day basis. And it's a mix of resources and be super transparent within your company. So honestly, every single employee can go back to our Notion page where only the three of us were actually writing our mission statement. So full transparency and resources. And on the other hand, trying to find, ways that are, nice and interesting and encouraging for employees to think about our principles on a regular basis.
Okay, what about that person? Let's say you've got those town hall meetings, you've got, just job performance, and you've got that negative person or the person that's just not buying in. What do you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are two situations here, of course. They're like a situation where someone is just not performing well, right? Just doesn't hit the numbers, doesn't hit their objectives. The way we will work with employees is really trying to understand the root cause of that. There's always a reason why someone is performing or not. In that situation, we have responsibilities as their managers. I mean, by now I'm managers of managers, but I mean, every person that is managing another person has a real responsibility, has got the right amount of training to be able to get to the bottom of it. And so we'll spend a lot of time, over the next weeks to understand what has happened. Is it a personal situation? Is it something that is related to the fundamentals of our culture? Or is it something that is just related to some missing piece of the training that this person hasn't got? But in any case, we'll make decisions always based on data. This is one of our principles. Best ideas win, and they win when we really go to the bottom of every single problem and try to understand it. So we'll spend a lot of time. And if fundamentally the issue is from a culture fit with that person and the world, the environment in which Forum operates is not the right fit for that person, we'll try to remind that person, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the motivation behind our goals? Some people, sometimes they just get into the day-to-day and they forget the North Star. They just forget why this person is doing the day-to-day work. And it's very important for us to keep reminding it on a daily basis. And then to the extreme norm, if this person is completely against our culture and it doesn't work well, and we really try to spend a lot of time with this person, no matter his level of seniority, and we just can't get her, then we just, separate on good terms and we help them with their next adventure, because we always want to make sure that people that leave Forum, if at all, they leave with a great mindset, and they will be our next ambassadors out there. So this is what we do.
One of the things that I found I've been involved with a few fast-growing companies, and I see this happen. I try to figure it out, but sometimes you might have a project manager, or you might have somebody that outgrows their job or just can't keep up. They don't have the technical experience. You have to hire somebody else. How do you keep the corporate culture positive while moving somebody on? It happens all the time. And it
Mm.
could just be, oh, the person's used to doing it one way. They started with us. It could have been a VA that just started from day one, but she doesn't know. I find a bookkeeper to accountant to a coup, right? Your
Mm.
bookkeeper is not going to be the coup of the company.
Yeah.
So how do you handle that?
Yeah. It's a great question. Of course, we are trying to solve for making sure that the company is successful, because I think this is the North Star. We want to build a company that is successful for the many years to come. At the same time, we want to make sure that we are in an environment where everyone has their chance to be successful and grow within their vertical or cross verticals, honestly. So we're giving all the opportunities to people to be successful. But using your case of someone that just doesn't have the requirements to be able to grow within the company, and the responsibilities are just too important, outgrow them, and we need to bring someone either internally or externally to be their manager. The one thing that is interesting is that the first principle is act like an owner. What does it mean? What does it mean acting like an owner in a startup environment? um, for me, when I think about acting like an owner, I think about ownership that requires more than just thinking broadly about our company's mission. I really think it involves, facing tough challenges on a daily basis. And acting like an owner for me really keeps us aware that our work has impact that extends across the company that we are building, and that we are accountable for what we produce. So ultimately, what I think is important is that we are building this culture where the number one principle is act like an owner, and we want to make sure that people understand that we need to do what's best for the company. And so if we gave them all the opportunities to grow, and we gave them the right reasons for what right now is important for the company and what we need someone to be on top of, to go on top of them on a structural perspective, we believe, and the people at Forum at least, are really being great, owners, or acting like an owners ambassadors. And the conversation is easier because of that. And so they understand it, this decision is not necessarily against them. It's more about how to make sure that we are doing what's best for the company. And of course, I'm not gonna lie to you, Norm. Some people get frustrated. Some people, decide to that it might not be the right fit for them now anymore. So we are always trying to, balance all the situations. But again, going back to the culture, and you're right to point out of that, if people are really bought into this, are exactly like number one, act like an owner, people will understand those decision making in I think a very good way.
Right. Now, this is going out to the listeners. So we're talking about companies. Think about I could see Redbeard, one man show. Well, you're going to be growing. At some point, you're going to be growing. You're going to be growing out to that VA. I am not convinced that there are no questions out there about building your company or building your brand. I'm just looking at all the regulars on here. You've got to have a question about how to do it right. What you can do. What are some of your nightmares? So if you have questions, throw them over into the comment section, and we'll get to them within the next few minutes. Anyways, the other point is we've got a great giveaway today. Ruben, what is the giveaway?
Yeah, so the giveaways, I will give 2 slots of 30 minutes of consulting, where we will be able to spend half an hour each, and be able to address any questions people have, whether it is for their company, whether it is in the company they're working, anything that comes to their mind. I will be more than happy to share from my experience so far at Forum and my previous experience before Forum. And so, yeah, that's the giveaway. Hopefully people will use that.
Fantastic. So if you're interested in the giveaway, it's #Wheel of Kelsey, tag 2 people, and you'll get a second entry. And people, shoot over a question. Have you had any, or comment? Have you had any good, bad, or ugly experiences trying to grow your business? Love to hear from you. Okay. So I had another question, now expanding out a little bit further, and that's recruiting. we've talked about everything else. Let's go back to the very beginning and
Yeah.
talk about the recruiting phase. How do you ensure that you get the right people?
Yeah, that's such an important point. So I think when you think about recruiting, you need to first make sure that the people who are going to manage the recruiting process are already very much big believers in your mission statement, in your principles. And so from there, we've actually built a process, a process within our hiring process, where we put some questions that are cultural based. So we have like very specific questions at every stage of, I would say, the recruiting process, from a phone screen to a hiring manager to the last round with the founder, where we can test some of those, principles very accurately. It took us a lot of time to get there. We actually worked with all of our collective experience to get there. But eventually, what it really helps us, test those principles, engagement, test the culture fit, and be able to make sure like people, when they come in, they will embrace those principles versus trying to walk away or harm them in a way or another. So it really goes into some of the tactical questions you want to test that you would have asked yourself if you were to figure out whether you are bought into the principles, and you just incorporate them into the hiring process.
So once the company grows, so you've hired the right people, everything is going fine, but now you're in growth mode. How do you make sure that the culture stays the same and it's just not diluted over time?
Yeah. So just to make sure, no, I'm gonna be honest. I don't have always the right people.
Okay.
We've made mistakes. I wish everything was perfect, but life is not perfect. So we had some mistakes down the road, which is fine. It's part of the
Yep.
journey. So I just want to make sure people don't think everything is perfect at Forum. We're trying our best, like everyone out there. So it's a great question, and I think this is probably, as co-CEO and one of the founders, probably the biggest day-to-day preoccupation and challenge that we have, and that our core management team has, is how to make sure, like, as we grow and grow from 10 to 100 people within a year, you don't dilute, or the culture is not diluted. So we've done a couple of things. The first and most important one, which is incorporating the culture and principles into the performance development process. So when we look at our performance review for every single employee, there is a component that is related to culture and principles. So it's not only technical. Part of it is technical. The other part is we actually, reviewing all of our employees, including ourselves, based on how well we did from a cultural and principle perspective. This actually helps us ensure that employees display on a day-to-day our principles through their interactions. That's number one. Number two, we do a lot of, we encourage team events, and we actually sponsor company get-togethers. So every team has a certain budget that we have decided to allocate on a monthly basis for them to be able to just go and organize team events. So that's to make sure that, like, there is bonding on a regular basis. The number three example is onboarding buddies. So when someone joins the team, this person will have a cross-functional buddy that will be this person who will be responsible for their onboarding, that will spend the first 3 months with them as sort of like their help, their here, and everyone has one. And the final thing that we do, which has been very successful, is that we incorporate principles, mission statement, etc., into the onboarding process. So when an employee joins, the onboarding process is super like structured and clear. And the first week, we don't want them to do any work. What they will spend the first week doing is literally reading a lot about our culture, our principles, how we came together, how to be successful. And we have all those resources I talked about, but this is what they're going to do for the first week. And all of these 4 examples, there are other examples. I'm not going to take too much time here, but these are like 4 examples that you constantly need to think about challenge on a daily basis, just to figure out like how is the culture. And we have also ways to test our culture. So we have like surveys on a quality basis. We have like sentiment tests, NPS scores, all of the traditional KPIs, but we are doing both in parallel.
So I used to drive into Toronto every day, and I live about, well, at that time it was about an hour. Now it's probably more like an hour and a half, 2 hour drive. But in the mornings, I pulled back and I just only do remote now, and our team is fully remote. But there's a lot of companies that might have an office. So how do you tie in keeping this culture on a remote basis, or maybe a hybrid, having some people in-house and then you have the group outside of the company?
Yeah, good question. So to give you some context, we are a hybrid model company. So what it means is that we ask people to come 3 days. The people who live in New York, we ask people to come 3 days a week in the office, and 2 days they can work remote. Of course, they can come 5 days a week, but the requirement is still 3. We recommend 3. We also have a lot of remote employees. We are constantly thinking about the remote environment and the impact it can have on the culture. So I think this is a very important question for you, Norm. And there is a super high importance of making meetings inclusive. So it is as simple as always having a Zoom link, ensuring that all participants can hear well, encourage remote employees to participate in conversation. There are some norms around Zoom that we had to like incorporate for the people who are in office, to make sure that like the employees who are remote feel that are part of an inclusive meeting. We also are doing a lot of, we're holding events that are inclusive for remote employees. So for example, something we did very recently, you probably heard about the Earth Day. We hosted a virtual trivia event where many in-person and remote employees joined together. So we also like think about events that can be inclusive for both in-person and remote employees. The third thing is that we encourage remote employees to take on high visibility and responsibilities. So for example, we have one of our brand builders, which are basically the brand manager who is remote. He was responsible for being the Q4 captain. And this person was basically providing updates on our Q4 performance initiative. Q4 being, of course, the most critical period for e-commerce businesses. And it had an extremely important impact on his visibility in the company. So as you build a business, and especially for us, which has a company with hybrid model, with people remote, people in office, you always need to think about the inclusive aspect of your company. And it has to be something you constantly think about. I gave some examples now. There are other examples that we do, but I think as a founder and as like a top management team, you need to build a structure, an organization that is inclusive for everyone, remote or not remote.
So we've got, and I know we're coming up to the time you got to take off in a few minutes, but I think this is an important question. So you might have 2 employees, or you might have 2 people, the owner of the brand and a VA. Over at your company, which a lot more than that, how do you quantify that the culture is on performing?
Yeah. So you're talking about a situation, just to clarify, where you have one owner and a VA?
Yeah. Or they might have, like, that's at the smallest. So you
Yeah.
have maybe one VA, or maybe they have 2 or 3 different people working for them, but you
Yeah.
want to ensure that, the culture that you're trying to build is on track. How do you quantify that?
Yeah, it's very difficult to quantify. I think what you can do is to send surveys. So of course, when you have only one employee, it doesn't make sense to have like an anonymous survey, because who's the answer coming from. But when you have a team of like 5 to 10, let's say, and you want to see how are people doing in terms of culture embracement, you need to basically, I think one of the examples is to set a quality survey where you can, quantify from, for example, 0 to 10, what do they think are the principles that have shown the best in the culture in this quarter? what are the principles that they would like to see more and why. And so as you gather those questions, that are very tactical questions that are related to your principles and in a way culture as well, you can gather like you can do some NPS scores, or you can track those performance metrics over time and see where you're doing better when you're doing work. And so once you know where you can do more work, then the next quarter you want to make sure that you will double click on them. Then you can have a feedback session with some of those employees that you saw. And I think this is important to do on a regular basis. Now, if you go on a situation where you have a smaller team, when you're like 1 or 2 people, I think the most important thing here is to actually just build some trust and be able to build those regular feedback sessions where you give feedback as a manager, but also you should expect to receive feedback from those employees. And that's the only way you can learn from your mistakes. Every manager makes mistakes, but it won't work if you don't build a trustworthy relationship with your employees where they can feel comfortable giving you both positive and negative feedback. And that takes time. That takes time. That has to come with regularity. And you should start early enough so that when you reach a certain scale, you want to be able to rely on those feedback to be successful.
We've got a couple questions here, but first of all, if you tuned in late, this is great information. Everything Ruben's been talking about can help you grow your business. It's so valuable. I would give this a second listen if you did tune in late, or if you've gone from 12 o'clock on. I mean, it's worth a second listen. So anyways, we got a couple questions. I don't know if we'll be able to get to both of them. Hopefully we will. Kelsey, what are the questions?
Okay, let's see. The first question to Cool Hands. I have a VA I'm overall quite happy with, but even still, unlike my past VAs, I feel he needs a little more management. I've never been a manager. Is there any advice on learning to be a manager, or maybe resources that Cool Hand can use?
Great question. So I actually recommend LinkedIn Learning. I know it's a little bit of a very well-known corporate company that everyone knows about, and I would normally don't recommend to use those very large corporate resources. But actually, LinkedIn Learning has done a pretty good job in resources for how to learn to be an effective manager. It's actually part of our first manager training that we have around Forum, and they need to spend 10 hours or 15 hours of videos that LinkedIn Learning has put together. Super insightful. It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's pretty affordable. And the amount of learning that you have from those videos is pretty remarkable. So my advice would be, try there, start there, have those training, try to apply some of the learnings to your relationship with this new VA. And if you want to go to the next level, try to ask around. Maybe you have people around you that have managed people in the past. No matter what industry, honestly, some of the most reliable, I would say, resources of knowledge can be applied to very different industries from yours and e-commerce. But ask around. Don't be afraid to ask some of the people around you, hey, I have this issue. I'd love to approach this relationship with my VA in that way. What do you think? Go and ask people around you. You might be winning half an hour with me, and you could ask all the questions as well. So
there we go. And if you do have sales, now I think it's $1.5 million in sales, but if you're at that level and you're trying to grow your management skills, I would highly recommend EO, Entrepreneurial Organization. They're located everywhere. It's a great group. You can basically get into a forum, and within that forum, it's like your own board of advisors. I joined it back in the 90s, and it was the best move I ever made. So check that out too, EO. And I think it's eo.org. But okay, Kelsey, next question.
Okay, next question is from Claudia. Our company consists of me and my son, Neil, and Neil does 95% of all the work. Can Ruben help a tiny company like ours? And if so, how?
So that question is a little bit broad, because how can Ruben I'm happy to advise in certain specific aspects. Claudia, if we were to get this half an hour together, So I probably need some specific questions on how and when you would need my help with. But when it comes to foreign brands acquiring a company like yours, again, it depends on many aspects. So probably a little bit broad answer, but the question was a little bit broad as well.
Okay, very good. And let's see, we've got 3 minutes. I think we might have time to squeeze in the wheel of Kelsey. Kelsey.
All right, we can see. Let's run to an ad, and we'll be back for the wheel of Kelsey.
All right, perfect. A big thank you to our sponsor, Startup Club, the largest club on Clubhouse with over 790,000 members and growing. They're one of the world's largest communities supporting the startup ecosystem, from founders to those wishing to work for a startup and everything in between. You can find them at www.startup.club for blogs, recordings, and a calendar of upcoming shows, and on the Clubhouse app. Just search Startup Club for daily shows 24/7. You can also now listen to their show, the Serial Entrepreneur Club podcast, on Apple and Spotify too. Stop by to connect, learn, and grow together. Okay. So, Ruben, you've never experienced the Wheel of Kelsey before.
No, I haven't.
Well,
All right. Well, get ready. Here we go. The Wheel of Kelsey.
It's time for the Wheel of Kelsey.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for entering today's Wheel of Kelsey. I'm going to shuffle up the names and give this a spin. If you are the winner, please email me k@lunchwithnorm.com and we'll connect. All right. Faye is the first winner.
All right, Faye.
Congratulations, Faye. And then we're just going to do one more. And okay, shuffle it up. And winner number 2, let's see who it is.
Claudia.
Claudia again.
There you go.
There you go.
Now you got that 30 minutes.
All right, perfect. All right, congratulations.
So if I think both winners know, but they could just reach out to Kelsey at k@lunchwithnorm.com and you'll get the information. Ruben, I'm just noticing we did this on time.
Unbelievable. I'm not sure whether it means that I did a good job or a bad job. You'll tell me.
Oh, no, I made sure that we cut off the questions. I still had a bunch of questions for you.
Oh.
But that'll get you to come back.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Well, thank you. And for your contact information, how do people get a hold of you or your company?
Yeah, so if you're an Amazon seller, first of all, that is doing more than $2 million of revenues and are looking to sell their business, or at least learn about how is the selling process, you can go to our website. There's a contact form, and that you can just fill it up, and we'll reach back to you very quickly. If you want to reach out to me directly, it's ruben@foreignbrands.com. And we are launching a new software tool, Crystal, that is going to be available for free to all sellers around the world. And this is basically using machine learning for demand planning and inventory planning. Super powerful tool that we're going to give for free to everyone around the world. And so there will be much more details around it in our press release, hopefully tomorrow, maybe next week. But there's going to be a big push out there for forums, just for the spirit of helping the community of sellers.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you for coming on. I enjoyed speaking with you over the last hour, and I'm glad we hit the time limit.
Yeah.
Because usually we could go a lot longer.
Thank you. I appreciate. I'm sorry that I had to cut by 10 minutes, but I appreciate you, inviting me here. Thanks for the great questions. And again, if you need anything else, reach out to me or to Norm, and we'll be happy to help.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you again. That was a really great episode. I liked what we got into something. Although it was about bigger companies, you can relate everything that Ruben said to a one-person Amazon seller who's trying to expand. Every piece of this were little nuggets that he gave. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about, if you did not get the scholarship that we were offering the other day, not from us, but when it went over to Carbon 6, amazing.com, which was Amazing Selling Machine. Now it's amazing.com. Most of you would know that. They're offering some scholarships as well. So if you're interested in the scholarship, let me know or let Kelsey know, and we can give you some direction there. So they came on, I guess, last week, and there was a podcast that they did. Anyways, I mean, that's some good news. So if you didn't get it and you want to go to Mexico on June the 4th to the 12th, just let us know. And it's for $3,500. Anyways, I think that's it. Kelsey, what do you got to say?
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. If you haven't yet, please smash those like buttons. Give us a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the episode or to the YouTube channel. If you are part of the YouTube channel, you may have noticed one of our brand new episodes or segments that Norm just did. Give it a listen. It's not the podcast. It's 5 reasons not to sell on Amazon. It's kind of like a condensed version, straight to the point. It's 16 minutes long. Give it a listen. I'm going to throw the link in the comment section here. We're trying out some shorter type content because we know not everyone has an hour in their day to do and watch full episodes, as sad as that sounds.
Oh.
You know, it's heartbreaking not having them with us, but we understand. So check out our shorter content here. This isn't the podcast. These are little condensed action steps that you can take and tips that Norm offers. So check it out. And I think that's about it.
Okay.
Don't forget to join our Facebook group. That is Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and E-commerce Collective. We do little giveaways. We have fun. We're just a very loving community, and I think there's a lot of cool stuff happening there. And great show as always. Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Redbeard. Appreciate it, and thank you for all the questions.
Now on Friday, we've got a really great show, and this is with Chloe Thomas, and we're going to be talking about creating your customer marketing or master plan. So this is marketing 101. A lot of us don't know a lot about marketing. We may never have taken marketing. All of a sudden you're thrown into your Amazon or e-commerce business. This is going to give you some really great tips. So join us on Friday with Chloe Thomas. Okay, everybody. I think Kelsey summed everything up. But join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. Thank you so much for watching. We could not do this without you. We've got such a great community. And like Kel said, just join us if you're not part of it over at in our Facebook group, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope to see you on Friday, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Lunch with Norm.